In typical Kody fashion, I just finished my EIFS stucco in my garage here in the fall, right in the nick of time, which is perfect. Now we're going to run through the step-by-step on how we did the EIFS stucco. We're going to go through what it is and why it's different than any other type of system out there. And really, you don't want to get it confused with acrylic stucco. Acrylic stucco is a system where they installed foam such as this on top of building paper with mechanical fasteners, washers, things like that. EIFS stucco is designed to work where you have a complete air barrier behind the foam, no mechanical fasteners. Water can run down this plane in behind the foam and run out of the drip caps. And it's the only system like that. And you know, this garage was a nice test for me to see how the system worked. I ran some tests as we went along and made sure the water was draining out of the drip caps properly. If I was doing this commercially or for a customer or a project, I would make sure to take the Stowe course, do the full EIFS course, and make sure I was doing it properly. Because if you miss a step, it's going to go all wrong on you, right? And that's why they went to the EIFS stucco system, is because there's too many failures in the acrylic stucco system, and there's buildings with major rot and major problems. So this EIFS system is awesome. Learn how to do it properly. I'm just going to give you a generalized overview of how it goes together and how it should actually, you know, just kind of the steps that it takes to get it done. But like I said, make sure to seek out all the proper information so you do it properly. And once it is done properly, it is awesome. It drains water, looks beautiful. So with that, let's get into it. Let's run through just the quick steps that I went through to get to this point, and then I'll go into a little more detail and overlay some photos and videos and just kind of jam-pack this here quickly. Step one, gold coat the entire building. You got to mesh all your seams. You do this before your soffit, before any doors or anything goes in. Step two, install your drip caps and flashings. Step three is to mesh all your flashings and gold coat those, and that's so that the water can run off of all your flashings. Step four, detail around electrical penetrations. Step five is starting to prepare your foam, cutting the pieces, back wrapping it, and making sure you have base coat on the sides and in behind a little bit. Step six is install the foam. Make sure you have the vertical groove so you have a drainage plane for your water. After that's all your foam's installed, then you want to rasp it all down so everything's nice and flush. Step 8, mix your BTS extra and embed mesh into there, onto the foam, and then just float it off flat. Step 9 is just to rasp that base coat again with the mesh. Just rasp it lightly, get any loose material off of there. Step 10 is your brown coat. So basically another coat of BTS over top of all of that. Get it nice and flat, rasp one more time. Then I suggest priming the whole building, and then finally your finished coat of stucco. So let's jump into more specifics and a little more detail of every step involved. So once the building was fully framed, we had the truss system on, it was all 100% done and sheeted, then we gold coated everything. So we use Gold Coat TA, which is a trowel-on membrane, and just make sure you seam or mesh all your seams and joints. Okay. Now what we did here is we actually meshed it and gold coated it as high as the wall would go. And the reason we did that is because I wanted to make sure that I had water protection above the soffit line, but also extra insulation above the soffit line. So my insulation was right at the very top of the wall, and I actually kind of designed it so it tied in with the attic insulation. I was trying to eliminate any thermal bridges created by the studs in the wall or the top plates or anything like that. That's another beauty thing of the EIFS system, is it just gives you that continuous insulation on top of wood framing. So like I said, I did that all before soffit and fascia, but I needed to get my soffit on quickly because I didn't want the birds living in there and making a bunch of nests and homes in there. So I just ripped a strip of 2-inch foam and I adhered that with the BTS Extra. I did my vertical grooves so that it had drainage for water. I installed that. Then it allowed me to put my soffit and fascia on, and then it actually just gave me more time to actually prepare and do the stucco work. So with the whole building being gold coated, I like doing it that way. Then when I go and install the doors, like these garden doors for example, it's gold coated in behind the frames. Then when I go and I have an actual stucco return like I do here, if water tries to sneak into between here, I have gold coat in behind. So I'm not worried about a little bit of water sneaking in. The whole building's protected. Plus I'll run some caulking down here in a little bit. So the whole building's gold coated. Then you plan out all your drip caps and flashings. You install all those. Then you mesh and gold coat over all of that. Now that's super important because obviously if you don't gold coat it, the system's failed, right? So you want, it's nice because you have gold coat in behind for extra protection, but obviously you've done your due diligence, done it properly. Now we have a drainage plane for water to escape out of the drip cap. Like I already mentioned, on these overhead doors, I had it gold coated before the jambs went in. That was nice. Now here with this drip cap, I had to order drip cap big enough. It was about, I believe it was 2 1/4 before the little bend here. But what the secret with this is, because it's exposed on the underside, is I made sure that the drip cap actually, the colored part of the metal wrapped along the underside and up the back, so that when you looked at it, you don't see black or brown or something on the underside of your drip cap. So that's just a little detail there that we did. With this man door, it's similar to the garden doors. What I had to do here is I set the jamb flush with the framing, and then I had that my gap for the rough opening. So I just spray foam that, and then I taped this off so that I didn't actually have gold coat and base coat actually on my jamb. So I just taped that off back a little bit. I rasped the spray foam off, flush, then I meshed and gold coated basically the wall right to the frame of the door. And that gave me that water drainage. Like I said, it's taped back so I don't have anything exposed. I can paint that later. So that worked out good there. And then same again, I had to order a special drip cap with the finish on the underside and the back so that it looked finished from the bottom, because there's no foam there. But with the, you can see I have the foam sides and the returns where my door is. You can see this is the area where I'm going to have some brick. So the drip cap for the stucco stops there. This will take care of itself. But then I had to have drip cap here that follows around and ties in with the overhead door. Now all this comes into play when you come and actually start prepping and back wrapping your foam, but we'll get into that later. So again, I installed these jam caps around my overhead door. Now these I just I butted in, so I had to seal up this inside corner. So I meshed and gold coated the inside corner. So that's sealed up. And then up top, I still needed a drip cap. Now that's quite a bit bigger. That's like a 4 1/8 inch size drip cap. What I want to point out there is, even though I probably don't need it, I installed it anyway. Make sure when you're doing any drip caps that you maintain that 60-degree slope. You know, you got to avoid that temptation of pushing it down tight in the corner and thus making it flat or even inverted so the water doesn't run off. So just keep that slope. Once all your flashings are in place, mesh and gold coat it, then you're ready to start actually installing foam and prepping for that. Don't forget to mesh around penetrations or electrical boxes. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, make sure that if you're using Stowe, do the Stowe approved method, or whatever system you're using for stucco, use their approved methods. You want the EIFS system to work properly. What I did here is I just took a 2-inch deep box, mounted it to the wall, mesh and gold coated around them, and that way I had water drainage around it. And then when it came time to actually install the foam, I made sure to back wrap and base coat around that opening too. Like I said, this is just my garage. I wanted to do a little test and some samples and see how the system worked, and that's what I did for electrical there. Now if you noticed, before I gold coated all my drip caps, I left the tape up about an inch so that the back side of my flashing was still exposed nice metal. I didn't want to bring it right down flat, because then if I kept my foam up a little bit so I could trowel and finish underneath, then you'd see gold coat or base coat, or it looks sick in behind there. So just keep in mind, you got to keep your tape up a little bit so that everything looks finished at the end of the day. Okay, now it's time to start cutting foam, back wrapping it, and getting ready to install. So simply all we did is pre-cut the foam. You want to back wrap and mesh and base coat any edges that are exposed or touching the drip cap. So as you can see, like around the garden doors, we had little pieces, and we just prepped every piece that we possibly could. We back wrapped it, and how we did that is, I find it's too hard to put the mesh on with the base coat, with the BTS. So what I do is I buy a latex or water-based spray adhesive or contact cement, and I just spray adhesive it on. I get the mesh to stick to the foam, and then I base coat it. So the other thing that we did is we actually did a 2-coat base around all the edges where there was doors or returns, so that way we didn't have to tie into that later. But what's nice about having the back wrap is then on the face here, when you mesh later, you don't have to try to mesh around the corner and that. You just mesh up close to the corner and then just adhere it on with the base coat, right? It's just so much simpler to back wrap it before. It seems painful and it just seems daunting where you're like, oh man, am I ever gonna get to stuccoing? But that's just like any type of work. It's mostly in the preparation. So as you can see, we just back wrapped and base coated around the garage doors. Anywhere like where the brick was going, you can see all the panels that we had to do. Everything was pre-wrapped, pre-base coated. That's the way the system's designed. Once those are all ready, then it's time to actually start installing the foam. We just used an oversized, we actually custom made our own tile trowel, and we just cut them deeper and spaced it off so they were wider apart. Like I said before, just make sure you use the approved method. This is just a fun little test for us. It actually did work well, as you can see from previous shots, as the water does drain down and it acts the way it's supposed to. But yeah, we just trowel on the BTS extra, mix it up. We just trowel it on in a vertical motion. Make sure you wipe off any blotches or areas where it could get blocked. Now keep in mind, Stowe and other systems, they have all types of accessories, and every day they come out with new products to make it simpler and easier for you guys. So if you learn their system, some of my methods may be obsolete, but their products are tested and tried and true, and they think of everything, so they have all the cool accessories for doing this type of stuff. So just keep that in mind. My method isn't the end all be all. It's just more of a generalized way of doing it. Yeah, so essentially at the end of the day, you're bonding the foam onto the wall. There's no mechanical fasteners, nothing that can cause water to leach into your building. It all gets drained down the gold coat. The Logan's been helping me quite a bit. He did most of the bonding of the foam. He did an awesome job. We ran some tests where we adhered the foam to the wall and then pulled it back off. And just made sure it wasn't too blotchy and made sure that we still had some drainage playing in there. And so that worked out good. We were testing that. Once all the foam is in place, let that cure and set up for a day. Then what you want to do is just rasp all your corners nice and square, rasp all the joints so that they're nice and flush. Then you're ready to actually start embedding mesh and BTS as your base coat. So really all you do there is mix up more BTS. It's nice that you just get to use the same product over and over. It's your adhesion, it's your base coat, it's your brown coat, it's everything. It's awesome. So mix that up, trowel it on the wall, embed your mesh. You can see how it's relatively simple. Then you just trowel it out. You make sure that the mesh is embedded. The rasping helps for adhesion, and then you just want to kind of float that over and wipe it off so it's nice and flat. But you don't want to wipe it too tight where you're wiping right down to the mesh. You want to just kind of float over it, leave it nice and flat and smooth. After your base coat and your mesh is on, then it's on to a brown coat. I don't know if that's the technical term for it. You want to just do one more coat of BTS. So just BTS the whole wall. Once again, make sure it's nice and flat. Give it a little rasp before you do the brown coat. Just knock off any high spots, get it, scratch it up so you have some better adhesion. Do your brown coat, make sure you don't have any ledges, trowel it out nice and flat. Then let that set up. Once you're ready there, rasp it quickly again. Prepare for your final coat. Then what I like to do is I like to actually prime the whole thing. And primer is essentially, especially on this white, it's huge because it seals up the concrete. As you all know, concrete will take the moisture out of the stucco or any material you're using. So it just seals the surface, plus it helps the color to pop out better. And in this white, you won't see brown or gray in behind that. It won't leave a shadow. So that's super important on light colors. Primer also gives you more time to work with your finished stucco coat. Yeah, it just gives you more time to work it. It goes further, and like I said, the color pops better. Then at the end of the day, after days and days and days of prep, you're finally ready to stucco. It's awesome. It's like, wow, I did all that work and now I only have a day left and I'll be finished. So all the glory happens in a few hours. So Logan and I, we just did a flow to trowel finish. I just troweled on the stucco, and essentially how I look at it is it's just sand with stucco mix. Like, it's just paint and sand, but it's obviously it's way more technical than that. But yeah, I just troweled it on tight, and Logan went behind me and he just floated it out so it had a nice texture and there was no high spots, and it just laid flat. And after that, you're done. You got to just do a few touch-ups here and there, pull all your tape off, and I still have to clean up all the flashings, but at the end of the day, that's an EIFS stucco system. That's how it's done. And just don't forget, it's not about making sure that it looks super cool. You have to make sure that the stucco functions the way it's designed to function. And that's what a lot of guys miss. It's all about allowing the water to drain down the drainage plane and out so your building doesn't rot to death. And with that, there's no other system that compares to EIFS stucco. If done properly, I think it is an incredible system to use. So I hope that video helped. Thanks for tuning in. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or check us out on some of the following.